Well, hello everybody. Thanks to everyone that watched my first video on this amazing tuning hammer. This is a follow-up video. Pardon the key bushing residue here. Sorry, I was just putting in a set of key bushings and filing some hammers. You can see the dust everywhere. So I'm taking a little break from working to give you a follow-up review on this hammer. I've had it for a while now, and I still love it. But I kind of wanted to show you how it's aged and some other observations I made, and also give you a little bit of an update on the tip situation, because that was my biggest complaint before with this hammer, was the provided tips didn't have the greatest fit. So I've had this hammer for, gosh, I don't know, probably a year or so by now. I'd have to look at the date of the first review. So I know a lot of people with this hammer cover it with some sort of like handlebar tape or something like that. I wanted to actually see how the finish held up, just a daily use. And, you know, I don't throw it in my kit next to other tools. It at least has its own separate pocket. But, you know, it gets put up on pianos and it knocks up against other things. And it's fallen on the floor a few times. So you can see, you know, the finish in places is kind of worn off, the anodization. And it could be re-anodized if I really want. But I am contemplating with, or I am thinking about putting some maybe grip tape on it or something like that, just to make it a little bit softer and also to absorb perspiration, which is one other thing about using a hammer that is all slick surfaces. You know, it's all shiny metal, and, you know, it's a nice sort of a plastic acrylic handle. It doesn't really absorb oil from your skin, so it will kind of get slimy and gross. The pro to the material, though, is that it is very easy to clean it up. I mean, you can literally just put it in the sink and wash it with dishwashing liquid, because it's aluminum, it's not going to rust. And, you know, you can take this ball grip off. You can see it has it just has a hex attachment to it, so you can just screw it off and clean the whole thing up and get it nice and clean again. You don't have the issue like with a wooden hammer where it can really get really filthy and it's harder to clean it. And you don't want to be washing your wooden handle tools with too much water or putting warm water on them. So far I've really liked it. I still think it's probably the most rigid, stiffest hammer on the market. It's extremely light, comparable to like a carbon fiber lever. The machining has held up absolutely great. I haven't had any issues with any play in this joint. I haven't even had issues really with the screw that holds it on coming loose and having to retighten it. Every now and then I'll check on it. I mean, the machining is just beautiful. Now let me talk a little bit about this tip. This is the Yamaha specific tip. And it fits amazing. It is really, really great on Yamahas. Pretty much all Yamahas and a lot of Kawais. I'm sure they use, if not the same tuning pins, very similar ones. And I found it works well on even European pianos, the tips, especially if they're newer pianos that have smaller aught pins, you know, especially 0-aught, 1-aught, even some 2-aught. But once you get to that size, then I usually switch to a different tip. But I've been using this Yamaha tip a lot just in general. And then if I get a piano where it's not fitting well, I'll switch the Watanabe tip. And that tends to work really well on most other things. The other thing I think that I would definitely improve is this joint right here, where this is kind of sharp. I would love for this to be rounded off. You know, honestly, all it would take really is for me to pull this off, and then I could just round this off a bit on this edge just to make it a little less sharp, because it does kind of, you know, depending on how you're holding it, you know, it can dig into your finger here. You know, if you're holding it out here, most of the time, if your finger is kind of in the notch, you know, it's not really going to hit on this finger. But if you're trying to change positions and you get a finger here, you know, it kind of digs in. Or if you're choking up on the hammer a little bit, if you've got, you know, a piano where you need to choke up on it. One area where, you know, at first when I started using this hammer, I was unsure about was the fact that it wasn't round. I was so used to hammers that were round, and, you know, I thought, well, this must be really uncomfortable, but actually, I think it's much more comfortable than you would think. Having this nice flat purchase for your thumb to rest on, and the fact that it tapers down, so it really fits in your hand really naturally, so that you know, unlike a lot of hammers that kind of get bigger, you know, and the fact that this part of the ball really tapers, it allows your last finger to wrap in there really naturally, where your fingers are really naturally positioned. You're not, and having this where it's wider up here really allows your thumb to rest in a nice natural position, where I don't feel like I'm doing this. So I really do like that. I also really like that I can hold it like this very well, and I can really, you can still get your fingers nice and tight together, so you have a really nice grip. And this groove here really gives a place for your thumb. So if you have a piano where you want to turn like this, it's excellent. But you have so much variation in how you can hold this. So I think in my previous review, I was saying that I would really like this larger, but you know, after using it for a while, I kind of take that back. I think that if it were too much larger, you wouldn't be able to get this really amazing grip with just a couple of fingers or up here in this part of your hand. Now, I do think technicians who are used to a bigger handle and they always use it in their palm, I do think that, you know, you would get more of a pressure point and you might like something that's wider and flatter. But, you know, you could probably even take like a racquetball and cut the end and then slip it over to make it bigger if you wanted to. And it would be super simple, since, you know, all you have to do if you want to turn your handle is just, you know, get a blank and then turn it and then cut a hole in it and screw it on there. So it's really nice. It's very, very modular in that regard. You know, the other thing I really think makes the biggest difference in this hammer is that you have this joint here that there's really no threaded joint connecting the handle of the hammer to a head. You know, and almost every other tuning hammer has some sort of a joint there. And this one, since it's basically embedded in the handle, and this handle's aluminum, which transmits vibration really well, the amount of feedback you get from this hammer is really unparalleled. You know, even hammers like the Levitan, I think I've got one over here. Let's see. You know, like the Levitan standard hammer, he tries to solve that with basically just welding the shaft onto the head, which is a good solution, but it's still not nearly as beefy and strong, because that joint where it's connected together is still a lot less substantial. You're still going to get some flex in that probably, versus this is so beefy. And also because this is so wide, you're turning from a lot larger radius outside of the pin. So it's almost like your force is amplified, you know. And also with this kind of hammer, with a standard hammer, you know, this one does have a nice tubular steel shaft, which is very strong, but it's still embedded in this wooden handle, which I think somehow just decreases how much you feel the feedback. But this is a great hammer too. I haven't had much trouble with this, but you know, like I was talking about, you see this hammer kind of tapers bigger and bigger. So as you grab it, it's I don't know, it's not quite as comfortable. You just can't. This is because it tapers. I'm telling you, it just being able to purchase that pinky in there, it's like it just it gives you so much control, and it's very comfortable. So anyway, I'm trying to think of some other things. So I'll give you a nice shot here of this, how this is held up. It's gotten a little bit dinged, you can see, but it's still pretty comfortable. And I assume you could probably polish this out. I mean, I could probably just put it on the buffer and get all that stuff out if I really wanted to, but there's no reason to. It would be pretty cool if they offered these in different materials or different diameters or different profiles. You know, so if you want one that has more of a flatter end to it, or if you want one that's a little smaller like this, or if you want one that has not much of this channel or a wider channel, that would be cool. And then it would also be neat if they offered these in different lengths. You know, for some of the guys that like a super long lever. I mean, I know there are guys that use these Fuyans that are like 18 inches long or something, but, you know, I think that's excessive, but I do think they found a nice sweet spot in terms of the length. You know, I'm not an older guy, I'm 40, so, you know, I don't have too many aches and pains yet, but I find this 12 or so inch length to be really good. Let me see, it's about, says a 12-inch ruler. Yeah, it's right about 12. It's right about 12 inches. So anyway, I think it's great. I'm even thinking about ordering another one of these just as a backup, because, you know, I'm hoping these guys keep making hammers, but depending on the demand and if they're working on other things, they may decide not to make them anymore, and that would be a sad day if I lost this one or it got damaged and have another one, because I am super happy with it, and I'm not usually one to, you know, not wander to other things. Unfortunately, it's a bad habit. I think I've tried almost every hammer on the market, and this is by far my favorite so far. So I appreciate the guys that designed and made this and thought outside of the box, and I think they've got a winner. My only request also, man, it would be awesome if they found a way to maintain the stiffness and somehow made this a little smaller. Because like I said before, Steinway Bs especially, some shimmels. There's some pianos where you don't have a ton of room between the tuning pins and the stretcher, and this runs into it. So, you know, some pianos it's tall enough that it gets right over the top of it, but there are some where you have to pull out another hammer, which isn't such a big deal. You know, if you've got another separate hammer, it's fine. But still, it would be awesome to just be able to carry just this guy. So, all right, well, thank everybody. And if you got any questions, just leave them in the comments. I'll do my best to answer. And have a great day.